Hello and welcome to the Goon Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our preview series, which has merged into the Expert Members podcast. I'm going to be joined by a couple of our members in a second as we look ahead to Arsenal facing Aston Villa, the battle of the goalkeepers, where ours can't play because he got himself sent off. Let's crack on with it. Hello, my wonderful members. Are we doing well? We good?
Doing good.
Yeah, good, Tom. Thank you. Thanks for having us again.
No problem, Pablo. Pleasure to have you on, mate. You could respond.
Sorry, I'm trying to get used to my mic.
Yes, we can hear you coherently. It's good. I mean, I thought we were going to hear some Brazilian tones, but no, it's Ashford. So
Nothing exotic here.
And Jared, how you doing, mate? Oh, I mean, your dulcet tones from Chicago are always perfectly audio through your microphone. So yes,
Thanks. Glad to be back as always.
good stuff. Of course, Jared and Pablo are two of our expert members. If you'd like to get a chance of coming on these shows, which we're doing a lot more regularly. In fact, I'm trying to get members onto every single preview show if I can now. So if you'd like to help support the channel and join up with the crew and get into our Discord server, then just click the join button below. Anyway, we're talking about Aston Villa, but first of all, a couple of things have happened before we get into that. Jared, David Luiz's red card not been overturned yet. Bedrex has. so just talk me through your kind of feelings with that.
It's tough to get through that one. I understand people were upset. I was kind of in the same camp as you. As far as the red card, it seems unfair, but by the letter of the law, I think it was the correct call. But these are two remarkably similar incidents. To say that one can be overturned and that appeal granted and the other cannot, I have a real hard time understanding that. And there's not going to be an explanation from the FA why one is and one isn't. They're just going to put their news out there and it is what it is. But I'm not like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory guy that everybody in Arsenal wants to say, everybody's out to get us. But in this case, it's hard to justify one over the other because, like I said, they're really, really similar incidents that are getting a different result. And obviously that's going to get people pretty worked up.
Yeah. Are you worked up, Pablo, by this? Has it bothered you that, Bednarek was... if we look at the two incidents, there are differences. There is more contact with Bednarek's one, but he looks like he's trying to get out the way, whereas David Luiz and Jose were kind of just clashing, ever so slightly clashing as they cross paths. So do you think it's a bad decision from the FA, and do you think both should have been either overturned or one or the other or whatever?
Yeah, I think they need to be a bit more consistent with their decision. I'm actually furious with the fact that one has been overturned and the other one hasn't. I know you're saying that you can see that David Luiz has slight contact, but it was really minimal. And he didn't make any attempt to go for either the player or the ball. He was literally running across. If you actually look at it, he was actually running across. So to me, I think that should have been looked at in that way. But then I don't mean to sound like most moany Arsenal fans out there, but it is us. It's expected. We hardly ever have these decisions go for us, whether it's VAR or overturning red cards. Don't really see it very often, especially with us.
No, you very rarely do. You don't like to sit there and go, oh, it's against us. And I always try and play the field in the sense that if we were fans of another team, you would obviously be much more ingrained with those other sides. And because we're Arsenal fans, we perceive things in the way of being an Arsenal fan. And maybe if we supported someone else, we would feel similarly about them. But it does feel often sometimes that things don't quite go our way, which is a shame. But fingers crossed it will change in the near future. It won't, but fingers crossed it will. Anyway, we'll look ahead to Aston Villa. Jared, there is kind of an emphasis around this being the battle of the goalkeepers. We don't have ours. Emi Martinez had a horrific time against West Ham the other night, which was quite good because in a way it kind of, it downplays that debate and levels the playing field a bit. But are you worried he's going to have an absolute blinder against us on Saturday?
I expect him to play pretty well. I think Martinez in general has been really consistent. And, he had one bad game and, it happens from time to time. I mean, you look at that second Lingard goal, you got to think that's one that he handles pretty easily 99 times out of 100. and it's not resulting in a goal. So, didn't have his best, but I was actually looking forward to Leno and Martinez. That's a good battle. They both perform well. Now I'm not looking forward to it at all. I know we'll get to our kind of expected lineups or what we think we're going to have, but I think we're at a point now where we're all crossing our fingers that Ryan's available, but Runnerson, he's just not, from what we've seen, he's not good enough to be a Premier League goalkeeper. I don't dislike the guy. I think he plays hard by all accounts. He trains well and all those things, but he just doesn't have it. And, if he was 19 years old, it might be a little bit different. But at the age he is and what we've seen from him, I just don't think he's a guy who's ever going to be a consistent starter or second keeper in the Premier League even. And he's not a guy I expect to be here beyond this summer. I think we'll find a loan move for him. But the thought of having to play them with him in goal is pretty frightening. Even with the loss yesterday, they still look dangerous for a lot of that game. They get shots on target, and they're a good momentum team. If they get moving forward on us, we're going to have a tough time, holding them off with him in goal, I think.
Let's have a look at what some of the guys in the chat are saying. Wilson says, I'm very nervous about the Aston Villa game, to be honest. Chris says, Tom, use your platform to get these British refs out of the Prem. I don't think I have any form of power at all, Chris. You might like to think I do, but I just don't. I'm really, really sorry. Glenn Cook says, I think Alex is hindered by his size in regarding Runnerson. Daniel Roberts says, Runnerson did put a good delivery into the box in the last seconds of the game. Yes, I mean, we should probably just put him on corners and free kicks then, is arguably what we're saying there. It might be an option. I did see, I think it was Dimitrov, I can't remember his full name. The Eibar keeper took a free kick for Eibar the other day or the other week. I know there's someone in the chat box that really wants me to keep bringing him up and wanting us to sign him as well. And I can't remember his full name now. But it's not a completely unknown thing. It does actually weirdly happen. Goalkeepers taking set pieces.
And Runnerson's a guy who he can at least beat the first man on a corner.
Very true. He's proven that. Yeah, maybe we should just put him at left back whilst we haven't got Tierney. That could be an option. Iron Cub says Alba has no business being in the starting lineup for this game. Someone has to say it. We're going to come on to talking about some of our picks for the lineup. But Pablo, how are your thoughts regarding the goalkeeping situation of both teams?
I think, unfortunately, Martinez is going to have a blinder. Although he did have a bad game against West Ham, he's playing against Arsenal. He's literally going to pick up his game. I'm worried for us. I'll be honest. I'm really worried. I don't have an issue with the outfield players. I think we can handle our own against Villa, but goalkeeping-wise, it is scary. I know Rodson done okay when he played the other day, but I just don't. I just can't see. I think if they put us under any sort of pressure or start pumping balls into the box, I don't think he's got the presence in him to be able to handle that. And I also feel that the defenders don't trust him as much as obviously they trust Leno. So straight away they'll be on edge. So that could really affect our performance, I think, defensively against Villa.
You look at all teams. Like I remember when Liverpool had Adrian in goal over Alisson, and they looked defensively less sure, even with Van Dijk being there. Just because they haven't got as solid of a keeper behind them, it does give you kind of that doubt in the back of your mind, the extra emphasis on making sure you're not making a mistake, trying to stop any shot or cross getting close to the keeper to protect him. When you've got a keeper that you can trust, you know that you can be a little bit more relaxed about your game and know that there's always that kind of security behind you. But without Leno there, and anything, this is a bit of a testament to the guy as well, who has faced a lot of criticism himself for quite a portion of the fan base. Fingers crossed Ryan is going to be fit, but the latest info that we have is that he's still yet to train. Goalkeepers, of course, are very, very different to players. They're not requiring the same amount of running, but you want them sharp. They've got to have they really need the focus and stuff. So if he hasn't trained at all before the game, I'll be very surprised. It's probably a good point to go into our lineups. We can always answer some questions towards the end. But we've all given our kind of desired lineups. A couple of Pablo, we're going to start with yours, I believe, if it comes up. It does indeed. Talk me through your selection. Oh, you're muted. Hold on, that's my fault. But I know you're going to have to do it yourself. I can't do it.
That's all right. Right, I've gone with Ryan in goal because I think even if he is like just coming back from his injury, an unfit Ryan would probably be better than Rodson. So I just didn't want to put him in goal if given a choice. I don't think Bellerin's going to be fit, and even if he is match fit, Tini, sorry. Bellerin.
Bellerin.
So yeah, I don't think Tini will be. Tini won't be fit, so he'll probably at best be on the bench. So I think we'll see Cedric again on the left, and then back four. The rest of the back four kind of speaks for itself. Have to keep Xhaka and Partey. Them two together, I think they're forming a really good partnership. And I would actually put Pepe instead of Aubameyang. I think Pepe, the last two games, was starting to, I think, he finally see what he's all about. And you can't drop Laka. I think Laka adds he adds to the play where he holds the ball off, he lays it off for the likes of a Smith Rowe, Saka, Pepe to kind of jump into it. So I think that possibly that's the best starting lineup I could go for.
Jared, very ever so slightly changed. Everything else the same. You went for Runners, and I think obviously if you had the choice, you would have picked Ryan, but you're more preempting it being Runnison.
Yeah, this was not necessarily my desire, but kind of what I expect. Just based on what Arteta said in his press conference, it sounds like Ryan still hasn't trained at all. He didn't completely rule him out, but just based on that, I kind of thought that maybe he wasn't going to be available. The back line, I obviously I have basically the same outfield that he does. Bellerin's kind of a given over there when we're going to have Cedric on the left. And Gabriel, I'm glad to see him back in. You know, he was our player of the month 3 months in a row, I think, and then had trouble getting back into the team. I think he's a big upgrade over David Luiz. And especially when we have a questionable goalkeeper behind him, he's been one of our more solid defenders. So I think him and Holding playing in those center spots gives us the best chance to kind of help Runnison out. The midfield pivot, Xhaka and Partey, like he said, they've been great together. No problem putting those two in right off. And the front four, Odegaard was a consideration. I think at some point we need to get him a significant amount of minutes and get him more than 10 minutes at the end of a game. But as it was, I stuck with what we've been seeing. And I completely agree with Pablo on Aubameyang. Pepe's played great. I don't think we drop him. He scored 2 goals in 3. His work rate off the ball has been fantastic. And again, based on what Mikel Arteta said in the press conference, he referenced Alba's fit. He got 10 minutes the other day, but he referenced that he'd been out for 10 days and kind of already put that seed in there that he may need some time to work his way back in. So I think we'll see Pepe. And then Lacazette, for me, has been kind of the key to everything we've been doing going forward. His hold-up play is really what kind of sets everybody else up for success out on the outside. And I think he is the number 9. I think when Aubameyang's back in, he's going to be on one of the wings, and that's where he's going to play the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm very, very close to yours as well. There's only a couple of changes on my end. I went with Odegaard just because I think he just needs a bit of a rest, Smith Rowe. He's played so many games for us back to back. Of course, he didn't play in the Southampton game in the FA Cup and was brought back in. It turns out he was actually injured in that game. So if anything, it's even more important to give him a rest. I wouldn't be surprised to still see him play. I just think that Odegaard is coming in. We're paying him a decent wage and he's got quality about him. I think Arteta wouldn't have brought him in if he wasn't planning on giving him many, many minutes. We heard apparently from the Norwegian media that he was kind of told that he would get plenty of game time. So this is a perfect opportunity, I think, to start in. There's nothing wrong with putting Emile Smith Rowe on the bench and bringing him on if we need to. Odegaard is also versatile enough that he can play with Smith Rowe if we need him to. The other big change is I've put Okonkwo in goal, which I know some people might turn their nose. In fact, I sent a question into the Askcast this week, Andrew and James recording, and they answered it about Okonkwo starting over Runnison, and they didn't agree. They felt that Runnison should be picked, and it could have more of a damaging effect on a 19-year-old starting in goal. My reason is for putting him in. It's just I simply just don't trust Runnison at all. I have no faith in the kid. He hasn't shown me anything to make me think, right, okay, well, there's a couple of good saves here and there maybe, but consistently has just been full of mistakes. The game against Man City, both of the first couple of goals were his fault. He looked off in the Dundalk match in the Europa League away from home. We conceded a goal, and I thought that was a lot down to him as well. And it's that confidence thing. And I know that I'm not saying that Okonkwo comes in and gives that backline more confidence, but I think that actually in a weird way, knowing that Runnison, who has made mistakes, isn't there, in itself would bring confidence. And I just couldn't face putting Runnison in for me. Okonkwo has been the additional man, as it's called, the additional squad member with the team for quite a number of weeks now. He's been travelling with the first team squad, and he's been in and around them and training with them as well. So he is certainly on their thoughts. And obviously as well, Runnison wasn't included in the Europa League squad, which means that Okonkwo would effectively be, being a homegrown player, our third choice keeper in the Europa League. So that is something to consider. I'd love to get your thoughts in the chat box if we can have a read through some of the reactions. Now Arsenal Toby saying, imagine playing the fourth goalkeeper. If I was Runnison, I'd be fuming, which I do have a little bit of sympathy for him, to be fair. Vinny says, sadly, Tom, I don't think Okonkwo is even in Arteta's plans, with him not being on the bench ahead of Runnison in other games. I think he's in the plans, as I said, being kind of in and around the first team squad. I think there is kind of the feeling that there is a future for him there. Wilson says Partey and Xhaka have formed a great partnership together. It's an interesting one, those two. Jared, do you think that Xhaka's kind of been elevated because of the introduction of Partey, or is this actually a Xhaka that we see now and again and he's just in a good spell?
I mean, he's in a great spell, but I think a lot of that is Thomas Partey. I think the best compliment you can almost give a player is that they make the guys around him better. And I think that's something that he does for us. I mean, I think if you said a few months back we were going to play United and we're going to see a midfield that includes Pogba, Fernandes, and Partey, and that granted Xhaka was going to be the best midfield performer of that game, people would have said you're crazy. But that's what we saw. I mean, we didn't get a win. We ended up 0-0. But I thought he outperformed all three of them that game. And in all the games recently, he's been great. I think him and Partey work really, really well together. And it's kind of set him up for success, and that Partey can cover up a lot of areas that maybe would have been a weakness for us before.
I think that obviously he elevates him. You look at how good El Neni was against Man United at Old Trafford, and I think that was a lot down to the presence of Partey being there. And since when Partey has been out and injured and El Neni's come back in, he has not looked anywhere near the level that we've expected from him. So fingers crossed we can see Partey continue for the rest of the season. Pablo, we talked a little bit about Pepe earlier on, who's been absolutely fantastic on that left-hand side, seemingly found his spot. Amazingly, he has discovered a right foot as well, which is quite incredible to see. The thing about starting him, and you definitely backed this with your lineup, was by dropping Aubameyang again to the bench, staying there. But do you have faith in Arteta to keep not picking Aubameyang?
Yes, I do. I actually think some of his comments today, when he'd done his press conference, sort of was almost suggesting as if to say, look, Aubameyang ain't fully fit, and more than likely you'll see Pepe out on the left. Once Aubameyang is back fit and ready to go, then he's got a real tough decision ahead of him, because fit Aubameyang, scoring goals, or a Pepe, who do you pick? I mean, that's going to be a real tough decision. If both of them have peaked and both of them are doing well, it's going to be really tough. But for the time being, I think while Aubameyang's still coming back from the situation that he was off for, I would definitely go with Pepe, 100%. And I think Arteta should stick to Pepe as well.
Dan, let's go to some of the questions from the chat box. If you've got a question, we've got about 10 more minutes, so feel free to throw some of these in. Jared from Daniel Roberts says, when do you think Callum Chambers will start playing again? Would it be to play ahead of Bellerin at right back?
I think if we're going to see him, that's probably where he's most likely, but I'm not sure we'll see him start this season unless we see a continued injury issue, which is a shame because I thought he played pretty well everywhere he played last season. He's kind of versatile, and he doesn't stand out as the best performer on the pitch, but he's always consistently decent and does a good job. I think if we were playing a back three, we may be more likely to see him, but since we've transitioned to the four, I think he's just unfortunately in a spot where he's kind of been shuffled out, and I don't expect to see him the rest of the season.
Christopher Fung says, aside from Grealish, who are you most concerned about in the Villa lineup, Pablo?
Martinez. I think it's going to have a blinder. I think he's going to have a blinder. And I think that, to be honest with you, I think if our attacking line will cause them a lot of problems. Will literally cause them a lot of problems. The way we started the game, against Wolves, that was probably some of the best football I've seen us play in a long time. And you can see the confidence in each and every single one of them players on the attacking force. So I reckon we will outscore them. Our defence has been pretty solid up until now. So outfield players, I'm not really worried, to be honest with you. Apart Grealish, as Fong said there, Grealish is the only one that I think could really cause us problems. The others, man for man, I'm pretty confident. Pretty confident in that team.
Famous last words, that is.
Who
we lost 3-0 at the Emirates?
Apart from the goalkeeper situation, that's the bit that will worry me, because I think we will probably end up having about 20 shots before we score, where they might not even need a shot. And they'll still score if Fredderson is playing in goal.
Very true. Omar says, Jared, do you think Arteta has finally gotten the best out of Pepe? 3 goals in his last 4 games.
Yeah, I think he's easily had the best spell he's had in his time here. And I think part of that is, the work he's putting in. But I think also just having a run of games in a row that he's gotten to play and kind of with the same guys around him, that makes a big difference in him settling in. And I think the move to the left has been huge. Right now, I don't think any team wants to play us and have Saka coming down one wing and Pepe down the other. They've been great. And I think also his defensive work has been considerably better. But he always felt like kind of a momentum player. Once he does one thing well, it kind of seems like his energy level goes up everywhere. And of recent games, he seemed to kind of carry that over, even going in before he scores or before he does something good. He's kind of come out hot and played well with and without the ball. So, yeah, I think he's done a great job with him recently.
Toby says, Pablo, when Tierney is back, would you put Cedric at right back over Bellerin?
100%. 100%. You have to have it. I can't wait to see Bellerin down the left and Cedric on the right. Cedric has been so consistent.
Tierney on the left. You're obsessed with Bellerin over Tierney.
Oh, I'm literally obsessed with Bellerin today. Sorry, Tierney on the left and Cedric on the right. I mean, Cedric is a lot better defender, I think, personally, than Bellerin. And going forward, his final delivery is really good. It is really good. So I'll be happy to see Bellerin on a bench and Cedric and Tierney.
There was some interesting debates going on. So I put a tweet out, I don't know if many people saw it, about Hakimi, which I tweeted, and it's got a fair amount of responses because the tweet effectively was, honestly, I do not understand the calls for Hakimi. It's almost like people haven't watched him or know what system he plays in. He's not, for me, a right back in terms of a back 4 and would leave us exposed as much as Bellerin does. He's not a smart choice. And I want to touch on this kind of Hakimi thing briefly. Obviously, I don't know how much of him you've both seen of him, but playing in this Inter Milan team that play the back 3, he's playing in this kind of right wing back position. Now, if we were still playing in this back 3 system that we did, and we had the right wing back slot, and that was going to be what Arsenal were going to do going forward, I'd have been like, yeah, 100%. I'm all for Hakimi coming in and being our right wing back because it makes a lot of sense. But in a back 4, Hakimi is very, very good offensively, really good at kind of creating chances, but he does leave the right centre-back exposed if hit on the counter-attack. Playing in the few sides that he has with Real Madrid, Dortmund, and then Inter Milan, they are sides that typically tend to dominate games. I know Dortmund have found difficulties this season. Inter Milan are Inter Milan and have a couple of patches here and there. But they are teams that typically tend to have more of the possession than their opponents, which means that he isn't being as exposed. In the Premier League, Arsenal's possession stats tend to feel pretty similar to their opponents in most games. We're not the same possession-dominant side that we used to be. We still like to be on the ball as much as possible, but we do end up giving the opposition quite a lot of possession, and I feel, especially in the counter-attacking sense. So I feel that if we were to, say, spend the money it would take to bring in Hakimi, I'd rather see us go out and spend money on a right-back that could do both ends of the pitch well, like be able to defend in the defensive thirds, be covering, have the engine to do that, and not leave us exposed, and that is out and out a right back. I feel that although Hakimi has played in a back 4 at a right back, he has now specialised in this right wing back role. Jared, have you got any thoughts on kind of the Hakimi argument?
So I watched him quite a bit at Dortmund last year. I really enjoyed watching them. I haven't seen him kick a ball since he went to Milan, so I'm kind of basing it on what I saw previously. And yeah, you and I are basically in agreement. If we were playing a back 3, he would probably be on the top of my summer list because I love him as a player. He's really exciting to watch and he's super dangerous going forward. But yeah, now that we're in a back 4, I just don't think he really fits the system. I mean, as far as the quality of the player, I think he's really, really good and is good enough to play in the Premier League and perform really well. But he needs to go to a team that's primarily playing a back three, because that's where he's best, and that's what makes him a good player, is how dynamic he is going forward. I look at him kind of as, he'd be almost like a Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's incredibly creative going forward and can set up a lot of goals, but he's not going to be, what we would be looking for in a right back. We want some defensive solidity, and I don't think he offers that at all. So I kind of think about it the same way you do. He's a phenomenal player, but just doesn't really fit what we're doing right now.
I think there's when obviously I put a tweet out saying I wouldn't want him to come, immediately people think, oh, Tom doesn't rate Hakimi. That's not what I'm saying at all. He is a really, really good player, and Inter Milan are very lucky to have him. Well, they might not have him for very long if they can't afford to pay Real Madrid the money that they actually spent for him. And it's not me saying that I think Bellerin should be the right back going forwards. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that if the money that it would take to bring someone of Hakimi's level in, I just look at Pepe, who we spent so much money on, and a year and a half down the line, we're finally maybe finding a position for him where he can play. And it wasn't even the same position that we bought him from. If you're going to buy a player for a significant fee, it should be in a player that is going to slot straight into the system, that you don't necessarily have to wait for them to transition. Pablo, what do you think about this whole thing?
Brilliant player, absolutely brilliant player, but a luxury player for a luxury team. We're not a luxury team at the moment. As you said about the possession thing, that's one of the main things that would worry me the most, is because he is brilliant going forward. And most of the teams that he does play for, they're constantly on the attack, they're constantly in possession and stuff like that. And you can really see his skills, his crossing, his ability, which is going forward. Playing for someone like us, he would struggle, I think. We would make him look bad. I know that sounds horrible to say, but we would probably make him look bad, because where we give teams so much possession, and we don't currently have sort of all the players around him to support him, we could make him possibly look bad. And I don't think it'll be the right signing. Too much money, not what we're looking for. I think I said it before in one of the podcasts I was in. I think we need Premier League players. Yeah, we really do, especially at the back. You need to get players that are from the Premier League, that know what they're doing. They don't need bedding in time. They can come straight into the side and do the job for you.
I have to say, Chatbox this evening, you really are trying to mug me off, it seems. Everyone's gunning for me this evening. I don't know what I've created. I don't know why I bother. I really don't. I'm trying to get more of your expert members on the show. I get Dan on Dan's nearly on almost every other week now. Fung's been on too many times, it's probably fair to say. And they're just getting, Zamir says the hashtag Lippy Army. They just love getting a little bit lippy in the chat. And, I'm not going to stand for it soon. I'm not going to stand for it. Lewis says, Jared, for right back, what about Araujo at LA Galaxy? This is going to be completely new to me. So you're going to have to tell me about this. What's this about?
I wish I could. I've heard the name, and I know that people are really high on him, but I must admit, I don't watch MLS at all. So I couldn't really give you a fair assessment or fair judgment of the player. Like Lewis, I've heard good things and heard him mentioned as being a guy that potentially could be the next one to make a move to Europe. But I just don't watch MLS to where I could give any sort of informed opinion about the player. Yeah.
So now the difference is Pablo stays up every night to watch MLS when it's on at the early hours of the morning. So he's now going to give us a breakdown of who Araujo is. So off you go, Pablo.
Don't want him. I don't know him. First time I've even heard of his name, to be fair. Yeah. So
it's one that I will look into if it keeps going. To be fair, I've been emailing MLS clubs like mad recently. I've got a meeting with Austin FC's press officer on Friday, and there's an interview coming out with Toronto FC's Jaden Nelson coming out on Saturday on 101. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. So I'll see if I can chase something up regarding Araujo. Vinny Eagle says, question for Pablo. This is going to finish off the show. If you could clone Cedric, how many of the starting 11 places would he fill?
Wow, that's a question. I'd probably go for four.
What positions is he? Is goalkeeper one of them? What Ruddison's in?
For a start, yeah. Definitely have him in goal instead of Ruddison. And then, obviously, in his favourite right-back position, I think possibly... Actually, no, just two. I'm quite... I'll be honest. I'm really happy I'll put a bench up with a load of Cedrics so then we can turn the game around.
It's just 5 Cedrics sitting on the bench waiting to come on, yeah. Or just running up and down the touchline, just saying hello to each other and they're warming up. Oh, dearie me. Well, that's a weird way to end today's show, but a very TGT way as it is at the moment. Thank you ever so much to my guests. First of all, Jared, thank you so much, mate, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always is, mate. Do you want to tell me where they can find you and what you're going to be up to?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Right down there is Chicago Gooner. And you can also find me semi-regularly on the Gooner Crack podcast with Owen and the guys.
When he actually gets off his arse and does something. Yes, finally.
Exactly.
No, it's not rather that. It's once he stops betraying his own podcast to go and join up with Lee Dixon now and the Gooners pod as well.
He's getting to be pretty big time.
He is, yeah. He's ridiculous. He's changed. He's a new man. I don't know. I like the new Ian. He's not. Ian he's not Owen anymore. He is now Ian. He's
transitioned. Yeah,
he's fully transitioned into Ian now. But no, if you haven't already checked it out, Mike and Andy and Ian had a chat with Lee Dixon on the Gooners pod. So if you want to listen to that, there was a great clip that Mike's put out onto Twitter of Lee Dixon basically throwing shade at Derek Ray and saying that Derek basically plays FIFA with the volume off and him just commentating over his own games, which is quite funny. So do check out Mike's pod with the guys and Lee Dixon. It's a really good listen. We'll be back tomorrow after I've said thank you to Pablo, who I nearly forgot to thank. Cheers, Pablo.
That's all right, no problem. Glad to be here again, Tom. Thank you.
I nearly wasn't glad to have you there. I nearly completely forgot. But obviously, you've been sounding absolutely excellent with the new mic, and I'm sure we'll hear you again very soon. It will be an investment that pays back, I'm sure. Good stuff.
Turn it off again. I hope so.
he said that he's had enough. He just wants off. We will see you again very, very soon. Tomorrow will, of course, be the Let's Talk Arsenal show. There are, surprisingly, I'm actually surprised how few tickets have been sold this week. Of course, we sold out the prize last week, which was the Thierry Henry signed shirt, which I know obviously a lot of our younger listeners will know a lot more about. And it's more of a niche prize. But the link in the description to our sponsors, Football Prizes, there is a 1971 double winners shirt signed by 9 players, including the likes of Charlie George and Pat Rice. So please buy a ticket, help support the guys over there. They help support us as well and are helping us to move towards some more professional graphics, which I'm looking forward to introduce in the next couple of months or so. But I suppose the thing is, and thank you, Dan, for reminding me, I haven't actually done score predictions. See, my head's all over the place. So as we wrap up, Jared, score prediction for Villa very quickly.
So I'm going to hedge my bet a little bit on this. If Ryan is in goal, I'm taking a 2-1 Arsenal win. Runnerson in goal, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Okay, that's it is completely dependent on who's in goal for us. Pablo?
I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. 2-1 Arsenal.
Good. Yeah. So we're going to score 2 past Martinez after everything you've said about him starting.
You have to take 40 shots.
I mean, if Lingard can do it, anybody should be able to do it.
True. Very, very true. Pranjal in the chat says 3-1 Arsenal. Omar's not feeling very confident. He's gone for a 2-1 Villa, which is, I don't know why, Omar. I know you're a negative Nelly in the chat. I know I'm only being harsh. He's not really. But no, it's negative. Wilson says, my prediction is Aston Villa 2, Arsenal 3. Dan says, if Runnison is in goal, I'm going for 19-5 to Villa. Not very confident there from Dan. Vinny Eagle says 3-1 to the Arsenal with a Cedric screamer. This is going to become the thing at us. If Cedric scores a screamer, we're going to have a dedicated Cedric show. He's becoming the mascot, and I am trying to really get into the works of getting one of his emojis made. It's a couple of weeks out from the sounds of things because the person that I get to make the emojis is otherwise engaged right now. Christopher Fung says 2-2. 2-2 to Christopher Fung. 2-2 draw. Nana GK says 3-1 Arsenal, up the boys. Top Tecker says 1-1 draw. And Noah Willis says Lingard is God. The prophecy was always written from Noah, which is a very weird statement. And he does follow it up with 3-1 Saka hat-trick. We'll have to wait and see if any of your score predictions have come true. You know, I'm going to get on the bandwagon and I'm going to go for a 3-1 Arsenal win with a Cedric screamer. So let's see if it comes true. Cutting in from the left-hand side, playing left back and bashing one in top corner. We'll have to see what happens. We will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.